Farm. My brother David just went to get some copies of some information for you guys. This is my son Damien and our good friend Scott Reed. This morning we're going to be doing maple coated almonds, and we're going to be stirring maple cream. We got in here early this morning, cooked the syrup up. It's over here in a water bath cooling for cream. So we'll get doing the nuts first, and then when we get them done, we'll switch out and do the cream. We're from Harpersfield, New York, which is down in the Catskill Mountains. We have a 300-acre farm. We used to be dairy farmers. 21 years ago, we sold our dairy cows and became full-time maple producers. We've been doing a seminar here at Leader's Open House ever since. Every year we do a seminar, and I got to say, this is probably one of the few years that the crowd has been a little bit soft. Usually we have 80 to 100 people in this room. So we have 11,000 taps of our own right now. We made 4,600 gallons of syrup, but we do a lot of value-added products and marketing in a lot of syrup and products. Damien can tell you a little bit about the economic value of these value-added products that we're doing.
So do any of you here make any value-added products by a show of hands? Right, and so a lot of you, what that offers, right, is it's more than just a jug of syrup on your table, on your web page, at your show, in your store, right? So the value of that is more than just, the return on the investment of the value-added product, but allows your customers to see, different ways that you can use and consume maple syrup, right? So in the U.S., 90% of fluid syrup is consumed on, pancakes in liquid form, right? And so we're taking it to another level where we're taking, an all-natural pure maple product, and we're showing alternative uses where, it's not just for breakfast, right? It can be used all throughout the day and at different, times, especially, snack foods, gifts, etc. So where it's really helped our business excel really well is that, we're a smaller producer, but there's my dad, my uncle, and myself are able to be supported full-time by the business, right? That's huge for us. So, and the only way that we were able to do it is by diversifying and having the value-added products. At our home farm store, we've got about 40 to 50 different maple value-added products, right? Some of them are quite simple, which you're going to see here today. Some of them are a little bit more complex, depth, recipe. Give you an example, like we do like a maple vinegar, we do a barbecue sauce, hot sauce, right? It's kind of endless. Because of that, we have developed a really strong web page. On our website, when you have a visitor on your web page, they're already committed to your name, your brand, etc. But now instead of just buying that quart of maple syrup, now you're going to expand their checkout cart, right? So for us, our average order value has increased from that, $24 quart of syrup all the way to our average order value is almost 75 bucks, okay? To do that, a lot of that was packaging, marketing, price points, etc. But a lot of it is just that you have the variety, and there's a lot of people that simply will buy from you because you have more than just maple syrup at the table, right? So first we'll talk about the coated almonds. So today the ratio is really simple. It's 5 pounds of nuts to 1 quart of syrup, okay? We choose to use the golden syrup rather than any of the darker flavors. We found the most success with that, and being that you're removing a large portion of the water from the syrup, you're already going to have a really strong prevalent maple flavor, but it's complementary to the nut, right? Here today we've got their almonds. At home we do 4 nuts. We do almonds, cashews, peanuts, and walnuts, okay? I can tell you from our neck of the woods, we're in central New York, the cashews and the almonds are the biggest sellers. We've heard of people doing pecans, hazelnut, macadamia nuts, whatever you want to do. So back to the nut part, for today we've got 5 pounds of nuts. As you can see, we bought them at a local grocery store. Cost of that's in the neighborhood of $40. They're not organic nuts, there's nothing special about them. If you get into the bulk side, you can look at a bulk buyer where you can buy the nuts in bulk, save you a little bit. So for our cost here today, you got about $40-ish in the nuts, and then a quart of syrup. Okay, so overall your total cost is in that $55 range. At home, we sell a 4-ounce package for $7. Okay, that's what a price point and a size package that we found to work well for us. With that, we're taking a quart of syrup and the nuts, so 55 bucks. Full MSRP in retail, we're turning 1 quart of syrup into $360. Okay? And so on the table, right, maybe they don't want to buy that half gallon of syrup for $35, but they'll buy a bag of nuts. Okay? Your price point, your package size is up to you. Another common thing is on Maple Weekend, Maple Sunday, Maple Mania, however you demonstrate your sugar house, it's a good sample to give out, right? So rather than giving out just a sample of syrup, you give them a couple nuts to try, right? It's still promoting your product in pure maple syrup. With the nuts, we found with the shelf life on them, we don't refrigerate them or anything. We keep them in a dry tote, all packaged up in cellophane bags. Shelf life on them is usually a good couple of months, 2-3 months. We try to gauge our production based upon our sales, right? So we know that if we've got a big Scott will spread them out on a cookie sheet and let them set overnight to where the nuts are actually fully dry and encrusted, and then he'll go and package them. Is there any questions about the nuts? Yep.
Do you have a dedicated machine so that you don't make maple cream with it?
Yep, very good question. Yep. So what we've done today, so this is the Leader turntable pan cream machine, and so we're using separate paddles and paddles and pan. So the bar and the machine are the same, but yes, we do separate them. So you'll notice when you come up here, we have right on the pans and the paddles, and we'll say that this one is designated for nuts, right? It's good to have that food safe practice, but it depends on what you're going to be doing with it, right? So if you're going to be making the nuts and you're not looking to sell them, you're looking for them for your own use, and the nut allergy isn't a problem, you can use the same pan. For us on a commercial practice, at home it's actually 2 totally separate machines and made in 2 separate kitchens. Okay. You can also make these nuts by hand. You don't have to use the machine. You can put them in a bowl and turn them. You can only do that so long before you're going to get arm tired. Is there any other questions about the nuts?
What's the temperature you're taking the syrup to? Sugar?
257.
Sugar?
Yep. And so what you'll see is it's a very quick process, right? So once we get the syrup to temperature, you'll see how the whole process. We can talk about that when we're going through it. But it's not it's not an overly time-consuming thing. So on the flip side, I can talk about the maple cream. So we got a little time on the syrup still. So the maple cream, case in point, we use the golden syrup at home to make the maple cream. On the market, you probably have seen or heard of the flavored creams and the robust cream. At home, we do the flavored creams. We don't do the robust cream. The robust cream is made with a darker, stronger flavored syrup. So what we're doing at home is we've got a turntable machine that's homemade. It's a little bit bigger, but same concept. And so in a given year, we're moving roughly 3,000 pounds of cream, right? So with the maple cream, we're heating it up to 234, and then we have it cooled in a water bath all day. Scott and I were talking this morning. What he does is in the wintertime, takes the pan and puts it in kind of like a snow dome, right? And is able to cool the cream. What we've found to work better for us is the colder the better, but you want to be careful that you don't get too cold. And we can talk about that when we get making the cream. And so as far as the economic part of the maple cream, we sell our cream, a half-pound jar, we're selling for $10, okay? And so for every gallon of maple syrup, on average, you're going to get about 8 to 9 pounds of maple cream. Okay. Yep.
You mentioned flavored cream.
Yep.
What kind of flavors are you offering?
Yep. So the 3 flavors that we offer at home is cinnamon, raspberry, and bourbon aged. Right. So like the bourbon aged syrup. Yep. And that is another thing that's kind of endless. There's a lot of new flavors that are coming onto the market. You got a question?
Yeah, the syrup, when you pour it in for the nuts, is there any tricks to keeping it from collecting to the edges?
Yep. And so that trick is a wooden spoon. And so you'll see that when we're using it. When you do start the turning process, there's a couple things that I'll point out that can be redundant about it. But you're going to notice that we turn the machine on and have the nuts with no syrup spinning to start. And we'll slowly drizzle the syrup onto the nuts rather than pouring it all in one full swoop, okay? And then what you also notice is that when the time of the crystallization happens, we'll take the spoon and we'll, keep knocking the nuts down from going over. And what's also key too is we're not going to over stir the nuts. So what's important about that is if you over stir the nuts, the incrustation and the maple coating is going to come off of the nuts, which is what we don't want, right? Because then you're just going to have fines in the bottom of the pan that you're not passing on to the consumer. So what you'll notice is we're actually going to turn the machine off when the nuts. So kind of bouncing back and forth between the cream and the nuts. So again, back to the cream. So what I can tell you there's two different types of cream machines that I'm sure you guys are familiar with. There's the gear pump machine and then there's the turntable machine. Both of them work. Both have their pros, both have their cons, okay? The one con to the turntable machine is you are gonna have to jar that cream by hand, whereas the gear pump has a ball valve on it, okay? It's one pro and one con. However, with the gear pump machine, you are limited that you can only make maple cream with it, okay? With this machine, we're gonna show you today two products that you can make. You can actually make a third, so you can make the maple cream, which is its intended use. You can also make maple coated nuts, and then you can even make the granulated maple sugar, which is what we made yesterday in our seminar. So for a small maple producer, versatility is kind of important, right? And so if you can use the same machine and make 3 different value-added products, now we have syrup and we have 3 products to couple with it. Whereas, if you have just a singular machine, right, you're only going to have 1 extra product. However, if you're looking, you say that I'm going to be doing farmers markets every weekend, I'm going to have a website, and I'm going to be moving some volume, you're going to buy the machine that's going to be more suitable for your business. So like for us at home, right, we make our candy on a candy machine, but then we choose to use the cream machine partially because at home we've got a homemade lot larger pan, a cream pan, and we have 2 pans. That's another thing that we can talk about. With the maple cream, you don't have to have just 1 pan. So for us at home, we're making about 60 pounds per batch of cream. And so what we do is the actual stirring process doesn't take a lot of time. What takes the most time is the cooling process of the maple syrup. So at home what we do is we have 2 pans cooling side by side, right? And so they're both one right after the other, and they both start cooling at the same time. We stir one, pull that off. While we're jarring the one, we're stirring the second pan. It allows us to increase our production. And so once you start that first batch, you can keep right on going. Does anybody have any questions about maple cream?
Did you say you make raspberry cream?
Yeah.
Did you say? Now, is that like a percentage of raspberry pounds per?
No, so it's all natural flavoring, right? So it's just a syrup.
Also, you use raspberry syrup.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
And that's, again, to the producer, what you want to use. Biggest thing is when you make a product that's not pure maple and you're adding something else, you have to be very transparent on your license, or on the label, and make sure that you have adequate license for your state, right? So like in New York State, we have New York State Ag and Markets that controls what we can and cannot do, right? So there's special kitchen licensing. I can tell you with the nuts, you need a at-home kitchen license, right? That's a very simple certification. Right? If you start getting into more complex things like a hot
Vinegars
sauce,
and
barbecue
mustard.
sauce, that's when you're going to need what's called a 20C kitchen license. And that's just food safety, right? And so we can talk more about food safety a little bit. So with the maple cream, maple sugar, and maple granulated sugar, right? So you got 3 products. They're all natural products. There's nothing added to them. You don't need special licensing to make them, okay? You're able to buy the cream machine, make maple cream, put it on your table, and you don't have an added inspection or license needed. When you start to make the maple nuts or the other products, you will, right? One way that you can, kind of work around that, say you're a smaller producer and you're looking to try to see what your market's going to demand, you can white label the product, right? What white labeling means is you're going to go find a producer or another manufacturer that makes that product, and you're going to private label it. So you buy it from them all packaged, ready to go, and you're able to put your name on it to test your markets. So like at home, with our local producers, a lot of them will buy the cream or the sugar candies wholesale from us for a couple reasons. One, to test their market, right? So at my farmer's market, am I going to sell a pound of candy or am I going to sell 25 pounds, right? So does it justify buying the machine? And the second reason is maybe they only open up to sell their products on Maple Weekend. There's a large number of producers I know in New York State that sell all their retail syrup on Maple Weekend. So 2 weekends out of the row in a row, 80-90% of their crop is sold. So for them, it doesn't make sense to buy a machine to only use it once a year. So in that case, right, they're gonna buy bulk maple cream, maple sugar, repackage it, rebrand it, and then offer a value-added product at their sugar house. Any more questions?
Just touch on this thing in a little bit. That we.
So the sheet that David, my uncle, just passed out to you, that's kind of a quick look cheat sheet. Okay, so those have got the 5 products that we make at home. They're temperatures that work for us. Okay, don't quote those temperatures that's where I have to be. So there's going to be a lot of things that impact what temperature you're cooking to. Elevation and barometric pressure and time of year and what the weather condition is. What I can tell you, in contrary to that, no matter where we've been, if we've been in Vermont, we've been in Maine, we've been in Pennsylvania doing demonstrations, we use those temperatures. We do not boil water at home on every day that we're making the confection, and we do not, check the barometric pressure. It works for us, okay? Some producers will have a little mad scientist going on, lab, study, making sure that they know everything before they'll make candy. Or if it's a rainy day out, they're not gonna make confections. It's just trial and error. What I can tell you is some people, like with the maple sugar candies, we cook the syrup to 242 degrees. If you go to a lower temperature, you're gonna have a little bit softer candy. If you go a little bit higher temperature, you're gonna have a little bit harder candy, okay? Pros and cons to both. Harder candy is gonna have a little bit longer shelf life. You're gonna have a little bit more crystallization in the candy. You don't cook it as far, you're gonna have a softer candy. 4th of July weekend, you're at a farmer's market, they're probably not gonna fare too well, right? So you gotta, it's kind of, you gotta play with it to see what your intended use is. With the maple cream, one thing to note on that, it is an all-natural product and it doesn't have an emulsifier. So the maple cream will have a tendency to separate if it's not refrigerated. So one way that you can do that is, let's say you're gonna make a batch of cream and you say, there's no way I'm gonna sell all this weekend, okay? You can put it in the refrigerator, but at home, if you really want to extend the shelf life, you can even put it in the freezer, okay? Put it in the freezer before you go to your show, take it out, let it thaw, let it sweat out, then you can put your label on. Depending on what your label is, you can use an at-home, printer label. Problem with that is if the cream does sweat, that label is going to come off. So now your customer went home, they're scraping the bottom of the jar and they want to buy another one. They don't know where they got it, right? So, I encourage you, just as much as it is important to make a good product, you got to also have a really good package.
When we're making maple candy, this was the first year that our candy was as smooth as it's ever been.
Yeah.
And Dwayne and Dave will tell you that when we came here, when your grandmother started, she came up with you. And the last year was our best candy, smoothness, blah, 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 the best. But when we run it through the auger, we're noticing a lot more sugar candy that doesn't make it through the spot, out through the opening, and it's congregating on the edge of the trough and on the auger. Not a lot, but maybe 4 ounces. Well, 4 ounces, that's $1.25, So, we're wondering, is that normal? Should we be having so much sugar on that organism?
So there's about 3 things that can be affected. Okay. So the simple one is you might be letting it stir too long. You might be letting it stir too long in the trough. Okay. So that process, again, just like the nuts, it's actually going to finish becoming maple sugar candy once it's in the mold, not in the trough.
Okay.
And so if you're letting it stir too long, it's gonna, it's crystallization. So crystals attached to crystals, so it could build up that way. Okay, so in that case, maybe with your syrup, where the pig snout comes down, control that, So maybe if you're a little bit slower pulling it out of the machine, cut your syrup flow up a little bit more, so that it's a little bit more viscous coming through the worm. Second thing that my dad just mentioned was the invert. Okay, the invert will play a test net. Are you guys familiar with what invert sugar is in maple syrup?
We don't pay any attention to that.
Okay, so
We just make candy.
So I can tell you that.
And we all know that every year making syrup is different. Every year,
Every
it's
year
never.
syrup is different.
So the syrup viscosities could be a little bit different, and that could add to that a little bit too.
And
It's not a
so,
lot, Dave, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not a lot, it's just.
Yeah.
But it just seems like it just collects at the end, it takes us, probably 5 or 10 minutes to get that hot water down there and melt it.
right.
We noticed that.
Yep.
You're just slowing down a little bit.
That may be true too.
Okay, what's the third one?
Yeah, so we, yeah, sorry, so we said, we had the invert sugar, we had, chasing it, with the syrup level, and the other thing is could be temperature, okay? So one thing that, everybody does it different again, right? So you get done cooking your syrup to 242 degrees. At home, we do not cool that syrup a ridiculous amount, okay? We set it on the machine, we heat our syrup with a steam kettle at home, we wash the steam kettle out, and then we begin making the sugar candy. So the total cool time is less than 5 minutes, okay? So other forums, other guides, some people encourage you to cool that syrup way down, okay? The colder that syrup is, the slower, the more viscous, the less viscous it's gonna be. It's gonna wanna move slower through that trough machine, and it's gonna cause it to build up even farther, okay? What I can tell you is if you don't cool it as far, it's gonna come through the machine quicker, it's gonna buy you more time on your production side, but it should have less buildup.
We notice that sometimes it doesn't come out the right color when it comes out. When we do it right away.
Sure.
We notice that the batches, the batches in the middle of are better,
Sure.
come out better.
So, yep, so that's an experience thing, right? So if you've seen the video on the candy before, right? The first mold is the important mold, okay? That's warming your trough up and getting the syrup out. When you start making the sugar candy, the first candy's coming out, you say there is no way that is going to turn into a sugar
We
candy,
say,
right? You
And it
look at and you
does.
say, that's way too close to syrup, right? And then as you go through, gradually it gets creamier and turns to candies. I encourage you all to come up and watch. And so as we're stirring, if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask. And so what you're going to notice is we're going to go over some of the steps that I talked about before. So Scott is going to turn the machine on and get the nuts moving before we think about even
aggressive with your paddle settings. Give them space to pass on the outside.
For making, peanuts and almonds are probably on the easier side to make, but it's one of those things, you know, over time you're going to get more familiar.
Nuts, any of your sauces, now they're going to come back. They're using that more frequently.
Yeah, and what we found too, I mean, this is what we would describe as like a snack food, right? An on-site consumable. So we've noticed too that when we go to like a fair, a festival, depending on the location, maybe it's even where your sugar house is. Say you're at a show and you're a half mile from the parking lot. So again, right, so if you were gonna make this at home, I would really encourage you to turn your ratio down. We're gonna make less nuts with less syrup.
Yeah.
Okay, that is gonna take some Armstrong to do a full 5 pound nut.
No, I'm looking at like maybe, I don't know, 1 pound bag of almonds.
Right.
Yep,
Mix it up.
yep, so it's 1/5, so now you're using a
The
fifth of a
bigger
pound.
problem with that is finding a pot small enough to get your syrup cooked to the right temperature. So if you're gonna cut your volume of nuts down, you gotta cut the volume of syrup down as well.
Right.
Right, and so I think you saw the little pot that we had.
Yeah.
It's really not that deep.
No.
And you are going well beyond the boiling temperature of syrup.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And your thermometer is digital thermometer?
Yep, we use a digital thermometer. And one thing to also note too, we had the little bottle of defoamer here.
Yeah.
When you breach syrup, you're going to need that defoamer.
Okay. And any kind of defoamer?
We use Atmos at home. You can use organic sunflower, any sort of defoamer.
And it doesn't take a lot.
Like for us on that quart of syrup, Scott put in a couple drips.
You don't have to use defoamer, but you're gonna cook, it takes a lot longer and a lot more patience. You have to be a lot more careful cooking. Like Damien said, when you breach boil, or Greek syrup.
You know, you could play with the temperature a little bit without using the defoamer, but it's gonna take
Yeah.
twice as, doing a quart of syrup like us, it took 25 minutes to get it to the right temperature from start to finish.
Yeah.
But so if you're playing with that temperature, you're looking at probably 35 to 45 minutes if you're not letting it cook
The
at
hot
high.
plate cycles in and out on us.
Yeah.
At home, I'm using gas, right, so that it's probably 15-minute cook time.
Yeah.
And you want a digital scale, not an analog.
You could whatever you want, right? So again, it's a rough temperature.
Yeah.
What I will tell you is with the temperatures, you don't want to go too far and you don't want to go too shy, right? So how you get to that number, that's you as a producer's choice. But I would tell you, at home we use nothing but digital.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, at home we use the Omega thermometer, right? So it's a lot more expensive and goes to the 10th of a degree. We found the accuracy on that one is superb, and it hasn't failed us until the battery dies.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions?
Well, Damien, the sugar that's in that pan,
Yep.
you're not gonna throw that away, you're
No.
gonna scrape it out eventually.
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, like what Scott was saying at home, he takes that product and saves it. So he'll like for this batch, we'll throw it into a gallon bag, save it up till we get to a gallon bag. Then he's going to put it into granulated shakers.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And then he sells that as a tertiary product.
Right, got
Yep.
it.
And so the next product that we're going to be doing is the maple cream. So we're switching gears again. We're going to get a more aggressive touch to the side of that pan. And the purpose is we want to scrape that syrup off the edge of the pan. Whereas with the nuts, as Scott was saying, if you're tight to the edge of the pan, you're going to have more nut breakage. Okay? And so this morning, we got in here this morning at 8 o'clock. We heated the syrup up to 234 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we put it on an ice bath. Okay, so we had a couple bags of ice with water, made ice water. And we made it so that the water, was above, just above the edges of the pan. And that gets the syrup down to temperature. Actual temperature of the syrup is pretty cold. Not
real.
not super cold. But what you'll notice is that, so David will kind of show you the face of the pan. When that syrup gets cold, it's going to be a taffy-like, viscosity. You're going to be able to take that pan and kind of tip it, turn it, and it's not going to, slosh around like if it was, warm syrup or even room temperature syrup. Okay? And so when we put it on the table, depending on how cold that is, sometimes what we'll do is we'll hand turn the machine a little bit to get things loosened up before we actually turn the machine on.
It's a little stiff.
We've had it stiffer. If it had been a little bit colder, we're gonna taste the difference because we know, but the colder you get your syrup before you start to stir it, the smoother your cream's gonna be. Now, most consumers aren't gonna know the difference, but we're maple producers and we're very fussy.
Well, you're the
We
best.
can tell, I would say that, we can tell the difference.
So the maple cream's gonna take a little bit longer to stir, but you guys are welcome to come up again. So as you'll see here, David is turning the paddle by hand, gets things loosened up a little bit before we're gonna turn the actual, motor on. One thing to note too is when what the producer would do is take an already finished product, maple cream, and put a small dollop in there. What that's going to do is that's going to introduce the final crystallization structure, and it will help stir that batch of cream a little bit quicker.
So normally cream will take 25 to 30 minutes to stir up. And that
Talk if you want. If you over stir the cream, when you turn that machine off, you will create a maple brick. Okay? You can save it. Okay, and we'll talk about that today. What you can do is if you do over stir the cream, you can put a splash of water in there. Okay, and loosen it back up. Right? It's one of those things that you're gonna have.
Bags of nuts, how much you sell for, you said?
4 ounces for $7.
Make it bigger than that, or
You can make bigger bags, that's just what works for us.
4 ounces?
4 ounces for $7.
I mean, what's that, like half the size of my hand kind of thing?
Eh,
The refrigeration and freezing process, when you're at home, you're not going to sell it anyway. You put it in the freezer, it won't separate.
Yeah, I was like, I asked him, I said, is this all the way back, like fine for the placement? And then he showed it, and started talking about it, and I'm like,
So that's just what,
yeah, he's right in the center console of my truck. Mine is too, yeah. We paid for the machine before, but it was half a year ago, like value hope.
don't see these guys complaining either. The only thing we need is a bigger spoon. That's about it. There's no way for sugar over the board for it.
Now,
That's
did
smooth
you
now?
turn this back on then? Or did you
I
just
did
let
turn it
sit?
on once, yes.
Wow, that's good.
Was that smooth?
And now I'm on this wall.
Because as you move it a little bit, it softens up,
And now I have this thing.
Well, I got it set up like a brick.
I'll be honest, yeah.
Like 10 seconds.
You got all your, all your.
What'd you do, loosen up, water?
There, that's
Yeah.
the sister-in-law, his
Yep.
sister's a realtor.
That's the part that
And then
This is the messy part.
some call come in and I'm like, hello? And then I'm like, why am I like this?
This is why we sell it for $10
Like,
a jar.
this, well,
You know what I would
I'm like,
do?
okay, I'm gonna put my arm down
Just
now.
thinking.
Yeah, just said you were making maple butter and I had pre-sell from Go
The
Board.
person giving their service
Because
over
everybody back
$36
home eats a
gallon.
lot of that.
Nobody knew
Person
about
overcharging.
maple cream. We didn't know what it was.
The gray area.
And it's maple butter.
They have a price point.
Oh, you call it
Somebody
butter.
was gonna buy it.
It's an argument we have, just like Sugar Shack is not a sugar house, it's a sugar shack.
Some people call it maple butter, but it's really maple cream.
It's just that the translation in French is butter.
32.
Yep. I want to be, I want to have my price on the highest
that's
and not the
See,
average.
in the US, then you sound like a dairy product.
Yeah.
But see, in Vermont, there is such a thing as maple butter, where they mix butter and cream together, yes, so you gotta be careful,
Let's see.
Yeah,
okay?
63 a gallon.
So maple butter does have butter in it.
There is such a
And it's
thing.
probably a shelf life
Oh,
on
yeah, yeah,
that.
that was all my brainchild.
Because of the butter.
Is that what he's saying, it's just in Vermont, like here,
Yes,
in New York State, like she
She
does,
does,
she calls it maple butter, that's why they call it. Maple cream.
The real.
You name maple butter, it sounds like a dairy product, like he was saying.
yeah, that's why we shied away from that,
Right,
calling it maple butter,
right, it's better called maple cream,
yes. Yeah.
because it's like putting Nutella on bread, you know?
Yeah.
a little jar and you had our little spoon.
Well, you got a lot of years of practice, you haven't
This is only a pound, so at home I'd have 3-pound bags, so I'd have to,
Well, you know what, the people that are buying that.
3-gallon bags, so I wouldn't be able to get it done in time, but this ain't nothing.
See, what I would do, just 1 pound, that is what you ought to do. Hell.
You know, we have to do too many batches.
$6 bottle cost, man.
The amount of cream we go through.
He's putting CBD in the syrup.
Well, that's what Scott did.
Oh God, I've never done drugs and I was
Hell, if you had your own cow, just milk 1 cow, then you'd be like Vermont, you know, make that real
Well, and
butter.
this, our young one, he wanted to, when they started saying CBD, right, they were gonna harvest.
Like I said, this is my first day.
Yeah, okay. Sure. I believe you any day you would.
He let a neighbor.
You need to run.